You want us to start?
I'll just introduce you quickly, if that's okay.
Okay, yes, fantastic.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final session of the Conservation Biology module. And we are honoured today to be joined by Gilbert Adam, live from Ghana. Gilbert is quite a well-known figure in African conservation. He set up the first African conservation charity dedicated to amphibians. Was that 10 years ago you set up Save the Frogs? About?
Yeah, about.
He's an old friend of mine. We've been working together many years. He's won numerous awards and large amounts of international funding for his work. A few years ago, he received a Whitley Award, which is sometimes called the Conservation Oscars, and are really prestigious recognition of conservation efforts. What particularly impresses me about Gilbert and the work of his NGO is the way that they bring together all the three main strands of conservation. He's a well-qualified ecologist who understands the species and the science. He works with the people and with local communities, and he also understands how to obtain funding and work with local companies and actors to get conservation working in practice. So he's a really inspirational figure, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from him. And I'll hand over to Gilbert. Take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Marcus. Before I start, greetings to all of you from Ghana, in particular Save the Frogs Ghana. It's a great honor to be in touch with all of you. I remember those days when I started, or when I wanted to start conservation work. Marcus, right there, was the one I consulted most, who became my mentor, and we've worked together all these years. So I can imagine the kind of support you as students will be getting from Marcus. So my title is Saving Ghana's Frogs, a Giant Leap for Nature. This is...
Gilbert, just quickly, can you turn it to full screen? That's better. Great. Go for it.
Is that okay?
Yep, that we can see it perfectly.
Great. So I come from the northern part of Ghana, and before we as a community arrived in Ghana, we migrated from Sudan through the Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso, and then Ghana. That is to tell you that my people originally and even now are hunters. So I was born into a hunting tribe, a famous hunting tribe. And for us, all the wildlife, all the animals in the wild, we claim they are for us. So we have the liberty to hunt as many as we want. That was how I understood conservation for wild meat when I began. So that led me to study wildlife at the university. In fact, I was the first Ghanaian to receive a formal degree in a field related to amphibians. You might ask why amphibians and not any other. So in my community as a boy, you have to start with a frog, the eye of a frog, and then you try to use your arrow to aim the frog eye. Once you get it, that means you have become a master. Sometimes I have to admit, or I have to confess to my audience that my love for frogs began at a time that I was hunting them and I became a master of frog hunting. But later on, I went to the university, studied about frogs, then realized that they were and they are now in danger of extinction, most of them, their populations declining. And then I thought of doing something to save the frogs. And in 2011, whilst I was on my first master's degree, I set up Save the Frogs Ghana. Just a few weeks ago, I changed the name, or we changed the name to Save Ghana Frogs. The only difference is that when we started Save the Frogs Ghana, we were affiliated to an NGO or a nonprofit in the US. But now we want to make it more localized. So we changed the name and became fully independent. Ghana's frogs. So Ghana, we have 85 plus frogs. Why am I saying 85 plus? Almost every now and then, we discover frogs that are either new to science or that are new to the country. By the time that I started, Ghana was thought to have about 30 frog species. That was in the late 2000s. But the numbers started increasing. Every series of focused amphibian survey that we will do, a frog will turn out or turn up to either be new to science or be new to the country. I'll talk to you about this special frog and two others. When I was doing my master's, this was a frog that was thought to be extinct, and my team and I rediscovered it. It's called the giant squeaker frog, and it's so close to my heart. Actually, I often say my frog because there was nothing, a frog that was thought to be extinct, and then we rediscovered it. And all my professional life, let's say 80% of what I do revolves around this guy. He's a direct developer. Direct developer means that they don't have the aquatic stage, no tadpoles. It lays the eggs, and the eggs hatch directly into froglets, small frogs. And it depends solely on leaf litter, but I'll tell you more later about why this frog is critically endangered according to the IUCN. This is another frog. Is the closest relative to the world's largest frog. It is restricted to 2 streams in one of the forests of Ghana called the Atiwa Forest. And this forest is now under the threat of mining. So the government wants to mine the forest for bauxite. I'll tell you also later about the efforts that my NGO and others are doing to stop the government from destroying the only habitat of this frog. This is also a frog that we actually fear it is extinct, but you know that extinction, it is difficult to say that this animal or this species is extinct, but the truth is over the past 20 years, all efforts to locate this frog, despite a huge amount of funding that my NGO and others have received to look for it, we haven't found it. It was described from 3 individuals, and up to this date, we haven't found any yet. But we haven't given up. We are optimistic that it may just be hiding somewhere, and we are doing all the efforts that we can to locate it. But apart from that, I'll also tell you about conservation efforts that we are doing to make sure that this frog bounces back from the brink of extinction. So what are the threats to Ghana's frogs? The biggest threats, like all over the world or particularly in Africa, is habitat destruction. This is me standing there in 2009 when I was conducting my amphibian research. I collected data from this particular spot that you see me standing. But a few years later, the whole forest, I mean, this part of the forest, was chopped down to make way for farming. And you know, amphibians are habitat specific, especially a frog like the giant squeaker frog, and you wouldn't expect them to survive in a place like this. Again, these are some of the threats: farming, logging. There you see me. There we're trying to arrest illegal loggers, just chopping down the forest for lumber, not just for local use, but to sell to people in the city. And I must tell you that there's a cabal. People in the cities will give money to locals, will buy chainsaws to locals in those communities and give them money for the fuel that is needed. And then they fell these trees illegally to be sent to the cities for money. So we made attempts, and we actually arrested many people at the time. We got the police to arrest them. Otherwise, the forest would have been gone. Another threat to a species like the giant squeaker frog is this that you see. It's called the devil weed. The scientific name is Coromolana odorata, which was brought from Southern America. And it has what is called allelopathic effects. Wherever it grows, you cannot have native plants growing there. You can see that the whole place, it has taken over the whole place. And it depletes the leaf litter that a frog like the giant squeaker frog will lay the eggs on for the eggs to hatch. And then the leaf litter also needed for the giant squeaker frog to hide and all of its life activities. But then here it is. The giant squeaker frog we did some surveys. There is no way the giant squeaker frog and other leaf litter dependent frogs can live in a habitat like this. Aside that, I say Ghanaians eating frogs into extinction, and people say I sound like an alarmist, but that is the truth, because we did a survey in the northern part of the country. 80% of the households that we surveyed make use of frogs for their protein needs. And I must also confess again that I myself, I grew up in such a neighborhood, such a community where we depended on frog meat. Honestly, it was the main protein, and it is now for most, the main protein source for most communities. But we are trying to do, I'll tell you what we are doing to take people off the hunting of frogs. But how are we saving the frogs? I told you about the giant squeaker frog. I told you about the intermediate paddle frog. I told you about the Actiwa slippery frog. I told you how these frogs are critically endangered and what is causing their decline. But how are we saving the frogs? That was a different, sorry, maybe there's a mix up somewhere, but here what I want to put across is, why do we have to save the frogs? The first, if you ask me to give you one reason, I'll tell you that I love frogs. But I know it has to go beyond my love. Ecologically, amphibians are bioindicators. In my research, in most research, where you find more amphibians, especially the forest-dependent amphibians, then other animals are likely to survive very well or thrive in those areas. One, because amphibians, their skin is very delicate, semi-permeable, and they are the first to be affected when there's any subtle change in the environment. That is why in the early 80s, it was detected this sea mass extinction that we are talking about, amphibians were the first victims. So they are bioindicators, and if for anything at all, because of limited resources, you cannot monitor every thing or every animal or every organism, but you can simply use amphibians to show the or how intact your forest or your habitat is. The second reason why we must save amphibians or frogs is storehouses, great storehouses of medicines. You've probably taken a painkiller, a strong painkiller, but you never would have thought that it came from a frog. And in Australia, not long ago, they discovered a peptide or a compound from a frog that can stop HIV transmission, but under laboratory conditions. And up to this time, scientists are working to see how that can work outside the lab. In the community where I grew up, day in, day out, the local people who don't have access to Western medicine, they use frogs to treat all kinds of sicknesses or diseases. And some of them even say that some of these diseases cannot be treated by Western medicines. So you can imagine if frogs will have to go extinct, like this gastric brooding frog that has gone extinct, but it was capable, the compounds they were capable of treating peptic ulcers. The last point that I want to talk about is amphibians are superb, great predators. Think of all the mosquitoes in Africa that spread malaria, that spread Zika disease. Amphibians play that great role where they feed on mosquitoes. They also feed on agricultural pests like grasshoppers, eliminating the need for agrochemicals so that we can move to organic farming. And I'm sure you all know the side effects of agrochemicals. Amphibians will eliminate the need for that. And so back to what I wanted to put across, how are we saving the frogs in Ghana? The number one thing is we are trying to create the next generations of Ghanaians where we have a large pool of frog savers, people who are very well skilled, people who are very much environmentally conscious. So Save the Frogs Ghana, we set up chapters across Ghana's 5 traditional universities where we work with the students to train them for the purpose. And when we started, we were just 2 amphibian biologists in the country, but now there are about 30 amphibian biologists. All those you see here, this photo was taken about 6 years ago, where I took these people to the forest and trained them. Today, some of them have their degrees and masters in fields related to amphibians. And this is also Ghana's first amphibian biologist, female amphibian biologist. Before Save the Frogs or Save Ghana's Frogs, we didn't have any female amphibian biologists. But we believe that when you educate a woman, you are educating a whole nation, because that woman will have the time to educate the children, will have the time to educate the peers about the need to save the frogs. I was talking about the hunting of frogs. This picture was taken from my village. So we have the Save Frogs Football Club, which is the only registered national team in that part of the country. We started it in 2013, and they've been doing very well, winning awards. Why we did that was we thought that after school, these kids at the then were going to hunt frogs. We set up this club, and then after school, instead of going to hunt frogs, they are engaged in playing soccer. Not just about frog hunting, but it is also to improve their future livelihoods, where some of them can become soccer heroes in their own right. And this is working so well to save the frogs in that part of the country. We also have an online program called the Ghana Online Amphibian Literacy Project, where we write articles like why the giant squeaker frog is giant, meet Ghana's beloved lady, the nine spirit frog. And then we asked our readers, our audience, to go online, read the article, answer the questions so that we know they really understand. And then we give them several rewards. And as of the last article, we had about 2,000 people, because there are statistics. As you know, when an article is read, then it's indicated. We had about 2,000 people reading our articles, and about 100 people, 100 to I think 150 to 200 people sending us their questions and their answers. And then we continuously gave them rewards. And this is helping most Ghanaians, as the youth, to really appreciate the importance of frogs. We're also trying, and we've done our best over a period of about 8 years, to bring back forests for frogs. The places that have been destroyed, we started engaging local communities to construct tree nurseries, then engaging the local people, kids, adults, to plant the seedlings in places that have been destroyed. And these are some of the trees or some of the saplings taking canopy cover over the years. And we are now conducting a study to see how many frogs, or the numbers of frogs or abundance of frogs that are back to those places, to know the recovery of the amphibian fauna. Apart from that, one excuse, as I was telling you, is poverty. People are poor, like I was, and then eating frog meat. So we try to provide beekeeping. Usually we ask the communities, what alternative livelihood will you want? So this is the place of the giant squeaker frog. We provided beekeeping support to over 300 poor households, so that it will eliminate the need for them to depend on the habitat of frogs. Apart from that, we also established, this is our Amphibian Conservation Education Center, the first of its kind in Ghana, where we stocked the library or the center with computers and books, and then engaging IT experts to train the kids so that in the future, most of them will be literate when it comes to computing, which they may end up to be programmers or to be IT specialists in such a way that that can be their source of livelihood. We also provide scholarships for needy and brilliant kids in the village. This was an occasion when we launched the program. And as of this time, we've supported about 30 kids from the village. Before this program, you had girls like the girl you see in this picture becoming pregnant and dropping out of school, or they are not able to proceed beyond the middle school. Now with our scholarship packages, they are able to go to the cities to further their education, because we believe that education is the most important weapon to change the face of conservation. We also instituted what we call the Giant Squeaker Frog Day, where the last Saturday of the week of April, communities across Ghana come together to celebrate the victory, the successes that have been achieved, not only for the Giant Squeaker Frog, but for frogs in general. We have people dancing, drumming, then reciting. We have kids reciting poems and acting plays, which we believe will show the appreciation that we and the communities have for frogs. So you might ask, so all these efforts, are they paying off? Yes. The Giant Squeaker Frog, not long ago, for the first time, we found 2 gravids, in other words, pregnant in coos, amphibians or females laden with eggs, which is a positive sign to us and to the international community that the frog is bouncing back from the brink of recovery. And for next year, actually, we are working on a project to create a protected area. Logging will not be allowed in this forest. Farming would also cease, and then the frog will have the chance to recover from the brink of extinction. But then we've had arguments which make sense that must be about only frogs. So we engage consultants, we engage other taxonomic experts on birds, reptiles, primates, butterflies, and we conducted assessment, fauna inventories of all these fauna. And I'm pleased to let you know that some of these surveys led to the discovery of 2 potentially new butterflies that we are waiting, or the experts are waiting to describe. What you also see here is a gray parrot, which is now endangered, or in Ghana, critically endangered, because a survey was done by the Manchester University, and about 90% of the populations have declined. But here in this forest where the Giant Squeaker Frog occurs, we have the bird thriving. And we also have chimpanzees and other primates that thrive in the forest. So with these surveys, we are able to convince the government that it's not just about frogs, but we are only using frogs as flagship organisms to be able to an entire ecosystem. So here, as I was talking about the Atwa forest, where you have 2 streams, the only 2 streams in Ghana in the world where you have the slippery frog dwelling. the government wanting to destroy the whole place for bauxite. We've been conducting protests, and recently we took the government together with other organizations and the international community. We took the government to court, and I'm also pleased to report that just last week, the international community led by the IUCN voted a resolution that this forest should not be touched. But we are still waiting on the government, the Ghana government, to see how they judge this case. But then the news that we got from the international community, including the royal family led by Prince Charles, and then many other conservation luminaries also writing to the Ghana government, we are hopeful that this forest will not be touched. And in the end, we are trying to make it a national park. Yes, so this is me. People thought that all these things that we are doing, we deserve recognition. I just thought I was doing something in a little corner of Ghana here to save the frogs. But then it caught up with the world, and then I was recognized in 2016 by this award on behalf of the Ghanaian team. And then the local people also made me a chief, a king. In Ghana, you can be a chief or a king in two ways, either royal, being born in the royal family like everywhere. But in my case, I didn't have any chance. My roots or my lineage, we don't come from the royal family. But through frogs, I got the chance to become a Ghanaian chief. And that is very important because the chiefs in Ghana actually own the forest. And in my case in particular, I am the chief responsible for the environment. And that means that I have a say. And that is why we are able to take some cases to court. And then we are able to create protected areas. So that I have that authority. And thanks to frogs, we've been able to achieve that feat. So this is a Ghanaian language, Midasi, meaning thank you. We wouldn't have been able to do all that we've done if not for the support of all these organizations around the world and individuals that I'm not able to mention here, especially my team members who have been very fantastic, and many others around the world. In particular, Marcus, who invited me for this talk in 2011. This is actually my son, also called Marcus Ekhon, whom we named after Marcus because the time he was born, I was with Marcus for my first training in scientific writing, in proposal writing, and communication. So if I can see far, as I always tell him, it is because he allowed me to stand on his shoulders. And with that, we've been able to save Ghana's frogs. And we continue to save Ghana's frogs, one frog at a time. So thank you, the University College of Cook, Ireland. Thanks so much, all the students. I hope we've been able to inspire you to think more broadly about conservation also in Africa, the challenges that we face, and how we've been able to overcome some of these challenges, and how you can also join hands for us to be able to save not only Ghana's frogs and not only the world's frogs, but biodiversity in general. So thanks all of you. If there are questions, I'm ready to answer. Thanks so much. Greetings from Ghana.
Thank you, Gilbert. That was wonderful. Do you want to turn your main camera back on again?
Okay.
Great. I'll open the floor to questions, but just quickly, congratulations on Atewa. That's brilliant news. I hadn't heard about the latest support you'd got, so that's really positive for Atewa, and I hope we can finish the job.
Right.
And the other question is there anything that our students here can do to help Save Ghana Frogs, to contribute? Do you have a Save Ghana Frogs Day or any fundraising activities? What can they do to support your work?
Yes, thank you so much. So as I said last week, in April, the last Saturday of every April, we try to organize events, and I've had people in the UK because I went to maybe something I forgot to mention. I graduated from Cambridge University last year, and my friends there and the contacts that the network that I made, some of them this day they come together to raise money, to raise funds for us to be able to do the work that we are doing. So I'm happy, and Save Ghana's Frogs. Ghana is happy if all the students or most of you can come together to raise funding for us to be able to sustain our progress. You can contact me by visiting our website or asking Marcus, and then whatever materials that you need, then we are able to show you how to go about it. Apart from that, at our website, www.saveghanasfrogs.org, there's a button there where you can donate to support our efforts. So we'll be keen to hear from you regarding that.
Great. Thank you, Gilbert. So I'll hand over to the students now. Can you ask Gilbert any questions you have, either in the chat or turn on your videos and microphones and ask him directly? No one's coming through yet, so while they're thinking, I'll ask you another question. There's a plan in Ghana that's been discussed for the last couple of years to eradicate mosquitoes. And if they are successful, or if they try, this could actually be quite damaging for the frogs. So how do you feel about the mosquito eradication project and the impact it might have on amphibians?
Thank you. For Ghana and like everywhere else, honestly, I don't think any other means other than the natural means can be a remedy or a lasting remedy to solve an environmental problem. You know, frogs is something natural, it's an ecological balance where they feed because they lay their eggs in water, and mosquitoes also breed in ponds or pools. They live in the same ecosystem in that case. And whichever way people want to eliminate mosquitoes, it could be ecological engineering, it could be whatever. I still think that frogs will have a role to play. And even if that happens, it will take a while. And frogs, just like in Europe, you don't have malaria, but you have your frogs also playing other ecological roles. So I don't, as I was saying, it shouldn't be just about malaria. And for Ghana, I can tell you that this will take years for them to succeed, for these efforts to go through. It might take the next 50 years, the next 100 years. So we'll have frogs playing this role until we are able to conquer malaria through the ways that the international community has proposed. But it shouldn't just be about only malaria. There are many other diseases and diseases that we haven't discovered yet. Just think of COVID. The world just woke up one day and there was COVID sweeping around the world, just like Zika disease. So even if malaria is conquered, there may be another disease that frogs will be able to suppress. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that is my personal view.
No, that's fine. I'm quite, well, obviously I think malaria needs controlling, but I think we have good methods for doing so existing and low technology methods. So it concerns me that the ways they're talking about controlling the mosquitoes and how they might, yeah, particularly chemical methods that might have knock-on effects on the frogs. So yeah, anyway, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's...
Yeah, as I said, in Africa, this would take years for it to happen. But I was also talking about the love for frogs and our moral rights. So even if, let's take it that frogs, they didn't even have any benefit to humans, the fact that they are organisms, they have the right, every organism has the right not to go extinct. It has the right to live. So for moral reasons, I would say frogs. And I'm saving frogs to be able to save other organisms or biodiversity in general. It's just that I have a soft spot for frogs.
Thanks to Emma for posting the donation link in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions for Gilbert while he's here? Well, we'll keep him until about 10 o'clock. So please get your questions in now.
Hi Gilbert. I was just going to ask, have you any big conservation plans for the future to save frogs that you're working on?
Yes, day in, day out, we have more than we can do because it's not just about the giant squeaker frog. Ghana, we have 85 plus frogs, and we are trying to do our best to save all of them if possible. And as I was saying, to about 80% of what we've done so far is about the giant squeaker frog. It's just because we don't have the amount of resources, including people, including talented people from Europe, from all over the world. And in the last few years, we had people coming to Africa, to Ghana, to support us. And I tell you that the incredible work that these people have helped in terms of training my own staff, in terms of reaching out to the communities, educating them, in terms of helping with all sort of things, even going to the forest to help with planting of trees. There's an enormous amount of work that we need people, and we are open for volunteers. All you just need to do, we have a form online that you fill out. Then you are welcome to join our team so that together we will be able to save the frogs. We need people in all fields. It can even be statistics. It can be beekeeping. It can be anything, conservation education, anything that you can do to ensure that that contributes in saving the frogs. Sometimes we ask people to come out with their own ideas that will contribute to our overall goal of saving the frogs. So you are all welcome to Ghana and to save Ghana frogs so that together we can save the frogs.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Brennan. Any other questions, guys? Oh, Peter, do you want to ask a question directly, or shall I just read it out? I'll just read out Peter's question for him. Peter asks whether you've seen a change in attitudes in Ghana since you began your work. So have you seen a reduction in the number of people eating frogs?
Thank you. At least I myself, as I said, I used to eat frog meat. I used to hunt frogs. So if anything at all, I can always talk for myself that for the last 10 years, not just frog meat, I have not tasted any wild meat, or Ghana we say bush meat or game. I haven't. And my whole family, I have tried sometimes to see if I can be a vegetarian, but given my past, that has not been possible, but I'm still trying, and I hope one day. But my whole family as well, both those of us in the South, my family, we've now moved to the South, and my family in the North, all of them, I can for them, they've ceased. It's become more or less like a taboo where no one eats frog meat. And the footballers that I showed you, apart from they themselves, there is a day that they go out to educate their peers, their friends, their families, the communities to stay away from eating frog meat. We haven't really done a study to assess that change, but from observations, this is something that I can say has happened, that people have stopped eating frog meat. But with time, we'll be able to assess. Apart from that, we had a baseline in terms of amphibian numbers, and with time, we will be able to assess to know the trend, whether there's an increase or a decrease or it's being stable. And if so, is it directly linked to the fact that some people have stopped eating frog meat, or there's another cause? So yes, I can tell you that my family and I and people that I personally know have stopped eating frog meat because of the education that we are giving to them. Quite apart from that, the forest reserves where we work, the places that we try to educate communities and we try to provide alternative livelihoods, and places that we don't, you can see a vast difference or a stark difference about the extent of the forest that is being chopped down and that is not. So I can tell you the message is sinking in. And I must also add that when I started with this work, I became a ridicule. I became a laughing stock to Ghanaians. Frogs, smelly animals, and you are saving them. People thought I wasn't a smart student. That was why I chose such a field. But with time and these days, I see people wearing our t-shirts. When we post something on Facebook, you see so many shares, so many likes from the Ghanaian community. So I can tell you that the message is sinking in, and Save Ghana Frogs, or a frog, has become a household love animal, or wild organism or species among some communities. And we are thankful to our efforts.
I know we've discussed this before, but is there an argument that we should be saving the Ghana frogs so that people can eat them, so that poor people who have no other protein can still keep eating frogs?
That is really dicey. But for me, personally, because of the harm that I know I caused the frogs, this is something that I will never advise. But it's no longer about me. I now understand conservation to mean what can help the majority, what people's, just like in Southern Africa, where you have lions and big wild cats being reared for trophy hunting, which is a controversial subject, but it's working well for some species. But in terms of frogs, if we have to do that, that will be frog farming, like in China, like in other Asian countries. But there is a disease, a fungus, chytrid fungus, that has caused about 70 frog species to go extinct. And this is waterborne. So there's that fear when you put frogs inside a habitat or in a pond, or you farm frogs. Just imagine one of them getting the disease. It escapes to the wild and then infects all other frogs, or frogs that will come in contact with it. So this will not solve the problem, I think, based on what I said. But I think what can solve the problem will be alternative livelihoods. We ask the local people, how does frog meat taste like? Some say it tastes like chicken. Others say like fish. Honestly, I don't remember. I ate that many years ago. I don't remember. And so if we can, and we give these people, let them go into fish farming, we let them go into poultry, that will even help them more than the frog farming.
Thank you, that's good. Thanks, Peter, for your question. Does anyone else have any last questions for Gilbert while we've got him here? Okay then, I think that's all. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Gilbert. It's been great chatting to you again. We'll have to catch up again in a little while and meet the families as well. Thank you for speaking to our students. It's been wonderful. So take care. Thanks from all of us, and see you again soon.
Yeah. Ciao. Wishing you all the best from Ghana.
For everyone else, I think I'm going to stop the recording here.